Afternoon, guys. Everybody doing all right? Good. Okay, so I would like to introduce a friend, a personal friend and a friend of the community. Her name is Di Hamill-Page, amongst many other things, and she wears me out when I follow her and see what she's doing. She's on TV one moment, radio the next, in the press and books, and she wants to be an MP, and oh my goodness, she really does tire me out with her passion and her desire to move forward. But Di runs, principally, her business is a school of self-reliance called Wild Harvest, the Wild Harvest School of Self-Reliance. So Di is up for 35-40 minutes. Thereafter she will take some questions from you. So without further ado, let's welcome Di Hamill-Page.
Thank you, David. Well, hello, can everybody hear me all right? Can you see the screen okay? Feel free to come further forward if you want, all right? I don't bite, so come forward if you want. So, hello and thank you for joining me. I'm going to talk to you today about self-reliance. We're going to start by looking at the concept of self-reliance, kind of what it is, what's happening to it, where's it going, and then I'm going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the ways that you can become more self-reliant naturally in your lives today, all right? And then I'll finish by, I've brought a box of goodies there so I can get those out and put some little bits and pieces out. And normally, if people are a bit closer, I've got things that I pass into the audience, because the idea is that you can make and do things while you're listening to me. So how does all that sound? Good. All right, are you with me? Good. So, before I put the first slide on, I'm going to ask you the question, what is self-reliance? The ability to provide from your environment. Great answer. Come on, anybody else? Even the Oxford English Dictionary struggled, so come on, let's look at the opposite then. Let's reverse process it. If you thought about somebody who didn't have self-reliance, describe them. They would not be very dependent. They wouldn't be very independent. Yeah, they would be kind of reliant. Okay, we're going to look at the first slide, right? So what is self-reliance? I've kind of taken the Oxford English Dictionary and added a little bit, all right? So it's reliance on your own internal sources or own sources for all of your basic needs, whether those needs are housing, food, medicine, even emotions, all right? So it's bringing the resources back home so that you don't have to have a kind of contract with an external agency or person. All of the sources of your needs are inside you or owned by you, all right? Would you all kind of say that rung true for you, what you think about self-reliance? Who thinks they're self-reliant here? It's a scale. It's a sliding scale. Hello, Nicole. Fine, thank you. So, you guys, actually, you give me hope for the future of the world, right? I was really excited about coming here today, not to talk about self-reliance, which I love to talk about, but to see you, because you are the future, all right? You are the people who are upskilling. You are the capable people in the world, and you are kind of society's tomorrow. So I hope you realise that. All right. So I was once asked to counter Monty Don. Have you heard of Monty Don? He said in the press that self-sufficiency is a non-starter. So the media contacted me, and they said, "What do you think about that? You teach self-reliance, self-sufficiency. So what do you think about that?" And I said, he's kind of right. In the individual level, self-reliance is nigh on impossible, yeah? People like to think of themselves as the lone wolf, yeah? But in reality, how long is that going to last? We are quite interdependent, all right? What's going to happen when his trousers wear out, yeah? Which bit of kind of survival is he going to sacrifice while he grows things and weaves them and, to make a new pair of trousers? So individual level self-reliance is very difficult, but move just up to family level and we're talking, all right? I raised my children in quite an unusual way. I had this idea quietly that they would all have different skills, and that together, if we needed to come together, between us we would have a self-reliant skill set. I didn't expect any one of them to have lots and lots of skills. It was about developing family level self-reliance. So who here is doing that? Who's got kids and you're trying to kind of get them out and about learning things? Yeah. So then what about community level self-reliance? All right, it's our duty, really. A lot of people say to me, self-reliance sounds selfish, it's very individualistic. But we have a duty to become the most capable human in our life, because then we can form stronger communities, and stronger communities can make up more resilient societies, all right? So we've got self-reliance on an individual level, on a family level, and on a community level. So people once had a lot more skills than we've got now, all right? Who's with me on that? Who quakes a little bit at seeing the way society's going with the kind of de-skilling of society? And so we used to have communities of skilled people. Has anybody read any Ivan Illich, or Illich, I never know how you say his second name. One of his books, he's a 20th century philosopher, and one of his books, Tools for Conviviality, talks about self-reliant communities. And he believes that modern society is undermining individuals' ability to be self-reliant, self-sufficient. So traditional skills are being lost. I think we're all aware of that. And it's really important because these are skills that make people feel empowered and confident. They help our children become capable, contributing members of society. They help us feed our family and see to our own illness. They're skills that reduce our dependence on those external sources. You know, we live in a very long chain supply life, don't we? You know, and it's very vulnerable. It might appear strong, but take one part of it out, and we're all left without. So it keeps us in a compassionate, reciprocal relationship with the earth around us and with its fellow inhabitants. So these are some of the reasons why it's important to keep our traditional self-reliant skills. So why does it matter that we do? It's good for mental health, yeah? It's quite hard to feel sad or anxious if you feel capable, you know? If people take away your resources and you know you'll be all right, that's quite empowering. It reduces anxiety. Secondly, we've no ability to help other people if we can't help ourselves. So thirdly, there's that reliance on consumer culture again. And fourthly, it's about the skills themselves. Yeah, it's not just about us, it's about the skills themselves. Some of them are becoming extinct, so skill extinction is another reason to keep up your self-reliant skills. In fact, there's been research done by Heritage Crafts Association and OS. Did anybody see that research a few years ago? It actually has a red list of some of our traditional skills that are dying. Okay, it's things we think we don't need, like clog making and barrel making, cart building, what else? But there's also things like wiring a plug, baking bread, changing a wheel. Another survey in our country said that 14% of young people did gardening, all right, which I thought was quite impressive, to be honest, with young people I know. But the point is, we're losing those kind of baking, gardening, self-reliant skills. And there's another fact that came up as well, that young men, you can tell me here, young men are more likely to have changed a nappy than a car wheel, all right? And it's not just in our country, it's the same across the developed world. Australian research shows that young women in Australia cannot do the same things that their mothers and grandmothers used to do. So just even cooking a roast dinner or growing a plant from seed. But the thing is, we've not become totally de-skilled, we've simply replaced the skills with other things, yeah? Our young people can now set up a smartphone very quickly. They can use sat-nav, in fact it's part of their driving test. Yeah, so we've just changed our skill set. And this leaves us, because they're not so practical skills, it leaves us with this kind of vulnerability. Now, shops operate on what you call a just-in-time stocking system, right? Whatever's on the shelves will be gone in 12 to 24 hours. Doesn't matter what the cause is, you know, whether it's pandemic, fuel crisis, economic breakdown, you know, climatic disaster, the results are the same, and it's scarcity. Yeah? So the more resources, more sources of your basic needs you can provide for in-house, so it leaves us not so vulnerable. Right, now, this is the interesting bit. Who reads what the government are doing? Because even the government, have you seen they have what you call a national resilience strategy? Go online, right? This isn't me being a conspiracy theorist. They are concerned about our lack of skills, right? Because they know that it's not always going to be as rosy as it's been. And they are worried that we are very, very heavily dependent on things they provide. At a local level, this national resilience strategy has implemented local resilience forums. Google them, you'll have one in your local town. Yeah, we survived World War II because we had skills. What kind of skills did we have? Do you remember in what seeing things in the war, in movies? Growing, knitting, what? Yeah, so many skills that our young people just do not have. Sewing, yeah. Now the thing is, losing skills, it's not novel to us. We're not the first group in society that can, be tutted at, because every civilization, when it reaches its zenith, does exactly the same thing, right? From ancient Greek times, right? When society reaches its zenith, it then looks back and it sees the old modes of living as outdated. And that's all we're doing. And the responsibilities of that fall to these things. We have advances in technology. Schools no longer teach traditional skills. My kids went to a Steiner school where, even the boys were sat there knitting with sticks. So schools no longer teaching the skills. We've got labour-saving devices that remove us doing them. The economic policy now means people have to work long hours just to pay rent and mortgage. It's not our fault. Yeah, we live in an economic environment that takes away our ability to gather and prepare. And finally, population mobility, moving away from our elders. So a little bit about us, and then we'll move on to looking at the different realms of your life with some really pretty pictures. Is that all right? So Wildhaven School of Self-Reliance, been on the go for actually nearly 18 years now, okay? We've got 2 off-grid TP sites in the rural outskirts of York where people come and stay and they learn the different things that we teach. So things like basket weaving, so how to weave a basket from the hedgerow, take it foraging, bring those plants back, make toiletries, medicines, food. We do fire lighting, we do instinctive archery, lots of things. Permaculture, sustainable land management. So basically how to be self-sufficient with just what is around you. We've also got an online school now with nearly 1,000 members. And I've got a book called How to Be More Self-Reliant Naturally. It's an e-book. So a little bit about me. How did I come to be interested in self-reliance? You might wonder. It's a bit of a niche subject. Well, I'm a qualified further education lecturer. I've been teaching 26 years. Qualified permaculture designer and tutor. British Beekeeping Association beekeeper. Gave that up because I didn't like it. Did the natural beekeeping course. Qualified archery GB instructor. Biodynamic agriculture trained. Member of the Association of Foragers, the National Association, Navigation Association Tutors Award up to silver. Tristan Gooley's been to my house, said my fried egg sandwiches are brilliant. Raised 3 children alone, off-grid in a remote dale. Black belt in Taekwondo, ex-British ladies lightweight, so don't complain about this talk. Can gallop on a horse and ride a motorbike, both roughly, but I can do it. Did the expedition medic course up to injections. Currently learning lock picking. All right, it's like active meditation. I love sheep and developing a weird skill set. All right. Now, I was raised a very, very unusual upbringing for a little girl in the 70s. I was raised by my poppy, who was my granddad, and he was a soldier before the war, through the war, and after the war, and then found he was looking after me when my mother left. So, and my hippie scientist father around on the scene. So it was kind of idyllic to begin with. We'd make rabbit cages together and they grew mung beans, made yogurt, made soap, because my dad was a chemist. Pop would bake and do DIY, but they didn't really know what to do with a little girl. Pop would say to me, right, meet me after school, I'd be 6, climb up this ladder, light my blowtorch, and he'd shout at me if I didn't pass it to him fast enough, this blade, up on a high roof. So I had a very unusual upbringing. So self-reliance basically was a big part of my upbringing. Without choice. Often that's the way I think people become more self-reliant when they don't have a choice. And then when I had my own children, obviously I didn't do things normally either. I used to take them backpacking. We went to Scotland and travelled by fishing boat and tractor and trailer. We stayed in the Middle East, me and these 2, before I had 3. Camped in the Oman desert. Discovered we were accidentally camped near an Arabian leopard's graveyard. It was the camel jawbones that gave it away. And travelled lots around vans in UK and Europe visiting communities. And it shows that even one adult with 2 or 3 kids, you need very little, yeah? Very little kit. It's all about attitude and skill set. And then when I had the 3 of them, I raised them in this tin can. It was illegal. Overwintering in the first caravan. I didn't know at the time, but farmers had bets on whether we'd survive the North Yorkshire moors winter in that caravan. Obviously we had one tap off the moor which the sheep used to share with us, and when the water got to us it was slightly brown, and any kids came to play they would go home sick, so I'll blame the latest bug. But my kids were fine. We didn't have a loo, we didn't have a shower, we just lived by candles, and we just shared one bed. Obviously in the bad weather, that one pipe would freeze, so we'd have to go down the lane with the pots in a wheelbarrow, smash the ice on the top of a trough and wash up like that. There's candles, that was a little dining area. We used to eat a lot on the fire outside. So after I won the bet, well, I didn't even know there was this bet taking place, but my farmer decided to get me a slightly better caravan. Still no electric. So I got a wood burner put in this one, and if anyone's interested in living off grid, don't bother with wood, okay? Because it takes a long time to grow, and we're going to look at self-reliance in heat a bit further on, but the words cow dung floor were not in my caravan, all right? Cow dung floor was the barn next to my caravan. I discovered it had a very dry, compacted cow poo floor, probably about a foot deep, and I realised from having stayed in the Oman desert, and we met this goat herder who showed me then that camel poo burns, all right? So with that in mind, I started digging up this cow poo barn floor, okay? It was very dry. I figured if camel poo burns, so does cow poo. And I was right. I spent a year digging that barn floor up and burning it. I didn't even have to touch wood. And then I later learned the science of it, that one cow poo has 2.4 kilojoules of heat output. So there you go. We used cheap wool as insulation underneath the caravan because that helped me. It was just freezing all the time. And this caravan, we got one light bulb that was powered by an old van battery. Everything else kids would walk to the toilet with a caravan. But this one, we got one light powered by an old van leisure battery, which would once a week, we'd have to stick it in the wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow's used for everything from washing up laundry to the battery. Push it down to the farmer's house where I would charge the battery up for £2 and wheel it back to do me almost a week. So that was luxury to us, that one light. There were my 3 kids in the second caravan, so that was about 2 years in. Then we didn't have internet then at the time, obviously, but once we moved to York, media, I didn't know it was a thing at the time. I just decided to give everything up. I didn't want anything, I wanted to know that we could live with very, very little. I just wanted my kids, that's all I needed. So, but then when we moved away and I took Wild Harvest to York, we got media interest in the lifestyle, and I suddenly thought, was it that unusual what I did? So basically that was the background to how I got into Wild Harvest, all right, and Wild Harvest's got here today. We moved from the Yorks of North Yorkshire moors down to York, where we've managed to grow year upon year, all right, which is, like I say, it gives me hope for the future of the world that people want to learn this kind of stuff. So I'm going to walk you through now different realms of your life where you can become more self-reliant just using the things around you, okay? And I've got a goodie box of bits you can look in after. So we're thinking of your kitchen cupboards. Close your eyes and imagine these areas around your house. Your kitchen cupboards, right? Think what you've got in there. Your garden and the wild, all right? That's a heck of a lot of resources. We talked about keeping resources in-house. Right, the first one is a bit random because of what I go on to next, but who has sugar at home? Who bakes with sugar, puts sugar in their tea? Yeah, so have you ever tried to make your own sugar? You have? What did you use?
I live in East Anglia and there's lots of sugar beets.
Oh, you got sugar beet. Did you slice it and boil it up? Yeah. So it is possible, but also want an easier way to do it, and this stuff here is 200 times sweet as sugar, so you need a lot less of it. So in other words, the output per input is great, yeah? So stevia likes the same conditions as basil. So if you use sugar, you can easily grow stevia. Start on your window ledge, put it out in the garden, bring it back in winter. It's 200 times sweeter than sugar without all of the hassle. So you can start with sugar if you want. Now, this is where I said it'll feel a bit odd because I'm moving on quickly to talk about toiletries, but there is a link between the two, I promise you. All right? So self-reliance in toiletries now. Yeah, who doesn't use toiletries here? Nobody's going to own up to that, are they? Even soap and toothpaste is toiletries. So there's nobody here not using toiletries, basically, is there? So most of us go to the shop and buy it. Now, my dad's realm he was a chemist in the surfactant industry, so I had the benefits of a very unusual upbringing, being told to mix various chemicals because he didn't know how to do play. So it turns out that really we only need 2 products in our house for toiletries. If I asked you about all of your toiletries that you've got at home, they will go into 2 categories, all right? 2 categories. One category will clean things and the second category will nourish things. Does that make sense? So you've got shampoo and conditioner, yeah, you've got your soap, maybe body butter, you've got your shaving foam and maybe then your shaving balm, yeah? So we've got 2 principal categories of toiletries. We do not need anything more than 2 products. We are told we do because that's what the industry likes us to do. They like us to buy. Now, surfactants is the thing that cleans you, strips the dirt away, carries it down the plug hole. Nature, it turns out, is full of surfactants, yeah? I'm sure a lot of you here at this show will have heard of some of these things. Saponins, esters. By the way, when you talk about it's got saponin in it and you're teaching people, there's many saponins. All right, for example, I've got some chestnuts, horse chestnuts in my box there to show you. They contain 4 types of saponin. Yeah, it's not just about it's got saponin in it. There's lots of different types of horse chestnuts, 4 types of saponin. Best way to extract it, microwave extraction, because it agitates it. But water, not too hot or you'll kill the saponin, but warming the water up, either just kind of on the hob or with microwave, and that will extract the saponins out into the water. Esters is another thing that's in nature. Esters are a kind of double whammy. You know, if you read the back of your toiletries, right, and it's got something ul, something ate, that's an ester. And esters are there to do 2 things. They're both clean and they nourish, right? So in nature, we find esters in converse things like as opposite as birch leaves, yeah, that's got esters, honeysuckle esters, but lard and lanolin, yeah? So we've got esters will clean and they will nourish. And then the other way you can clean yourself is pH, yeah? You know, acid alkali scale, pH. My favourite toy when I was growing up was litmus paper. So pH, the skin, which is what we're washing, exists at roughly neutral pH, which means that anything in nature that is less than neutral, yeah, more acidic, or higher than neutral, so more alkali, will clean you by its very nature, all right? So in nature we have, I'm going to look at some things in a minute, which I'll show you, but yeah, so pH, just be mindful of pH, right? I don't want to spoil the next couple of slides. So do you get me on that, yeah? Altering the pH is going to clean you because it kills bacteria, because most bacteria will exist at a neutral level, unless it's cholera, and then it'll exist at quite a high pH. Then on the nourishing side, we've got lanolin around us, we've got nut and seed oils, yeah? Nourishers that we buy from the supermarket for our skin, it's nearly always paraffin wax, mineral oil, and they're all byproducts of the petroleum industry, by the way. But so the nourishers around us that are natural, with no import miles, are lanolin. Who's ever stroked a sheep and thought, oh, my hands are really sticky? That's lanolin. Nut and seed oils. I've got a French seed press for extracting oils. Wax. So what waxes have we got around us? Beeswax. Yeah, has anybody touched bog myrtle leaves? They've got wax. Yeah, we've got earwax. Has anyone seen that Father Ted thing about making the candles out of Father Jack's earwax? Yeah. Animal fats. Yes, nourishers. Who's ever used lard on their skin? Yeah, good on you. Because that was the first body butter, like way back in cave days where the women were preparing their meat. They noticed their skin became soft when they had animal fat on it. Yeah, that was our first ever body butter. I'm really 103, I'm just embalmed with lard. So you see how we've got, in nature, we've got things to clean us and things to nourish our skin and hair. All right, gels as well. We'll look at a surprising aloe vera alternative that grows right near you as well. So here's some horse chestnut soap, which I've mentioned about. You can see the froth. By the way, incidentally, soybeans, which we can grow because I've tried that, and haricot bean, the humble baked bean, very, very rich in saponins as well. So using pH, I promised you some photos. Wood ash with rainwater through it is akin to potassium hydroxide, which has a pH of 14. Yeah, can you see there? You would not want to put that on your skin, although it would make you feel very clean afterwards. What you can do is mix it with some kind of fat and make wood ash fat soap. all right? I experimented with a few different types of fat, and I found that the harder the fat, the better the soap, yeah? So, for example, tallow rather than lard. Now, here's where the stevia comes in. I promised it wasn't in the wrong category. Right, so I make my own toothpaste, all right? And it's fat-based toothpaste, you might be surprised to hear, using some of the fats that we mentioned, and there's a reason for that. I won't go into it now, but if you're interested, come and talk to me at the end. Clay, yeah, we have loads of clay deposits around us. We've got Sheffield is a big clay area. In fact, just anywhere you can find clay, and it's fine to just dig it up out of a riverbank, wash it, put it on your baking tray and powder it, all right? Clay goes in my toothpaste. The fat and some peppermint oil. All right, you can use any kind of antimicrobial plant essential oil, so it could be a little bit of clove oil or pine oil. It's just in there to be antimicrobial. And then the other thing that I put in is stevia, right? And that's simply because if you've ever tasted peppermint oil, right, to make your own toothpaste, you've tasted peppermint oil, it tastes nothing like toothpaste. And let's face it, we all love that fresh minty taste of real toothpaste. So when making our own, it's kind of nice to make it taste as like toothpaste as possible. So toothpaste, I don't know if you read labels, but toothpaste has things like sorbitol in it, which is a sugar alcohol. Yeah, it's not unusual to find sugar in toothpaste, but it's just not the kind of sugar that rots your teeth. So I put stevia in my toothpaste, all right? Okay, so we've looked at self-reliance in toiletries. So next is self-reliance in heat. So remember that long chain supply system we talked about, yeah? Well, obviously heat and power is part of that. In our country, we already know we don't kind of produce enough energy ourselves domestically, but one of our main problems is actually storing it. In the coldest winter, we have about 2 days max storage at full use. That's our capacity, 2 days, yeah, as a nation. So we don't have enough in-house generation, we don't have enough in-house storage. So how would you keep your family warm if power went down?
We're making a cow yard, so we're more on it.
Oh, fantastic. We're all coming to yours then to nip your cow poo. So I've got 2 principles for being self-reliant in heat, okay? One is short rotation coppice, all right? I'm sure here a lot of you already know what coppicing is. Yeah? Does anybody not know what coppicing is? Coppicing is where you manage woodland growth in a certain way whereby you cut it right back so that it grows in, and the ideal woods for coppicing are things like ash, hazel, but willow is the one that I want to get across to you, because willow is a much shorter rotation for coppicing, and you then can cut that for fuel, you see. So willow, short rotation coppice, all right? However big your garden, get some willow in it for several reasons, and we're going to look at that in a minute. So you want to think about some kind of short rotation coppice. If you are near things that will eat it, you said you've got cows, if you're near deer or anything else that will eat your fuel, right, because you need to rely on that source, then you do what's called pollarding, which instead of coppicing, where you cut it off at the ground, you grow the central stem up to neck height, and you allow all of the stools, the shoots, to come up from the neck. And that stops grazing animals eating your future fuel. All right, so learn about coppicing for future fuel. Because wood is a finite source, is it not? If we're all out gathering wood, what's going to happen to it? And how long does it take that wood to replenish? Yeah, I know a lot of people say to me, I'll be fine if it all goes tits up, because I'll just go and get wood and I'll light a fire. But if we're all doing the same thing, you need to be thinking about how I can be more self-reliant in heat. Secondly, herbivore shit burns. Who's a herbivore here? There are many, many cultures around the world that mix human manure with dried grass, and they use it as fire fuel. Cooking fuel, in fact, in some places, right? This isn't novel. So, willow. I said about willow being the best thing to grow for short rotation coppice because it's much quicker turnaround. You should buy it, by the way, if you've got a bit of area and you're going to do a lot of coppicing, try to interplant different species of willow, or even add some other types of wood in there, just because what are monocrops? If you've got a monocrop, you are vulnerable. Yeah? So in permaculture, the thing I love to teach, right, we've got this principle, and it's called, it's every element of your life design, whether it's how you structure your garden, how you structure your home, what is in your handbag, right? In order to maximize the efficiency, to optimize your life, every element of it and its design should serve at least 2 functions. Does that make sense? So if you've just got a toaster, what can a toaster do? Toasts. If you've got a wood burner, what can it do? Yeah, there's more than 2 outputs there, right? So what Willow is, not only will it give you fuel for the future, what else can Willow give you? If you have a corner of your garden that you turn over to short rotation coppice with Willow, what else can Willow give you? Yeah. Yeah, you see, you're on it already, this whole, having several purposes to one product, yeah? So Willow can give you, I've got photographs, haven't I? It can give you fencing material. That was my first willow fence. It was very easy to make a willow fence. I've done a few in the basically bundles of willow, 5 at a time, in and out of, you need an odd number of uprights, all right? Just an odd number of uprights, and then it's just bundles of willow in and out, soaked willow. But speak to me about it after, because we don't have time to go into everything here. But if there's one thing that you're interested in, then come and talk to me after. And what else can you do with willow? Some of my students, baskets. You can weave baskets. If you can weave a basket, you can weave a planter in the ground for growing your vegetables. And then with the waste, because in permaculture there is no waste, everything at the end of a process should really have a use in a different system, yeah? So we make willow stars for Christmas decorations, and instead of giving Christmas cards out, we give willow stars out with little labels on saying, Happy Christmas, this is your Christmas card for the next 10 years. Okay, so we've already looked at the concepts of camel poo and pony poo, etc., herbivore shit burning, right? And it's the idea of, I always kind of pause when I get onto this bit. So we've talked about the idea of the dung cake giving out kilojoules of heat, yeah? But what else can poo be used for? Yeah, absolutely, growing things. So this whole idea of not producing waste, there are links throughout my talk, but you will probably miss most of them because it's like that, right? But can you see? We've gone from one thing to the next, right? So now we've gone from poo to potatoes. We've just talked about produce no waste. In a survival situation, what is poo? It's a waste that you are really going to struggle to get rid of, all right? So you need to think about how you can make it a useful input into other parts of your survival system, all right? So in addition to burning it, we can grow food with it, yeah? Would you like me to tell you a little bit more about that, or? Yes, no? Yeah, no? Who's eating? Okay, well, it turns out if you are a vegetarian, right, the rot down time of your human manure is about 6 months, all right? If you are a carnivore, leave it about a year before you grow anything in it. Now, where the caravan was, we had it, the first caravan just had a portaloo, and we used it for a week, and we poured the blue fluid into it, and I was pouring that into the field, right, digging a hole, and I hated pouring that blue liquid into the field. So I said to the farmer, I'm not using that. So we did without the blue liquid for about 2 days. And with 3 children, you soon think, yeah, okay, there was a reason they designed that blue liquid. But equally, it wasn't a solution. We could not have the toilet inside the 1-room caravan with no chemical solution in it. So after a kind of 10 days, we got rid of that portaloo, and we just used a bucket on the doorstep with a damp towel over it. Thankfully, we never got any visitors because we were way at the back end of the dale. So, and then we mixed that with molehills. Has anybody ever thought about molehills as perfectly tilled soil? Yeah. So we'd go out into the field with a wheelbarrow. I told you this wheelbarrow got a lot of use. Collect the molehills, and we would layer the human manure up in tyre towers, yeah, old tyres, yeah. The human manure, molehills, and pony poo in layers, all right. Rot down time of 6 months. 2 potato tyres produced 15 kilograms of potatoes. And that was too many for me and 3 kids, so I was selling them around the dale, but don't tell anybody if they lived in Farndale in about 2010. Right, so being self-reliant in food, right? A lot of people say to me, I'll be all right, I can grow my own, I'll be all right. Somebody else will say, I'll be all right, I can forage. And then the third person says, it sounds like a joke, doesn't it? The third person says, I'll be all right, I've got 2,500 tins in my pantry. Yeah? What's the problem with any one of those solutions to future-proofing yourself with food? What's the problem? Well, it's vulnerability because it's the whole monocrops are vulnerable, right? So if you've only got this one thing going on, if you are just growing your own food in the garden and then something happens, like, believe you me, neighbours will be looking over that fence in times of hunger, and you will wake up one morning and your lovely garden will be gone. How are you going to get food then, yeah? Or if you are only foraging for food, that's your self-reliant strategy. Come, shit hits the fan, you can forage, but what if everybody else is out foraging? Yeah? And then what about if you think you've got a load of stuff in your pantry and you've got enough to last you till things bounce back again? But what if the big bully boy from down the road comes and nicks it all? Yeah? You're vulnerable. You absolutely need a threefold strategy for food self-reliance. Okay? You need all three. So the first thing I recommend you do is learn about permaculture. We can't go into permaculture in this session because it's just too big a subject, but have a look at permaculture. I've got an online course in it. But some of the experimental techniques I've done over the years with permaculture are straw bale gardening, aquaponic growing, yeah? Straw bale, it's not hay bale. Please don't call it hay bale. Even people in the permaculture world call it hay bale gardening. If you try and plant things in hay bales, it will go very, very mouldy, not like in a good rot down way, just mould, and you will grow lots of grass seeds, okay? So it's straw bales. And ideally, if you can, the perfect straw bales to grow in as a growing medium where you haven't got a growing medium would be organic barley straw, would be the absolute best straw bales. And you need to prime the straw bales first by peeing in them, so solving another problem, isn't it, of waste, or blood and bone meal, or if you've got a fish pond, pour like algae type water on, just something to inoculate your straw bales. Then when it kind of starts breaking down in the middle, then it's time to plant it out. I will say, because I do experiments all the time raised by a scientist, so I have grown the same things in straw bales that I have then in raised beds of soil. Right, soil does better all day long. So if you're going to rely on bales, you're looking at things that don't need much nutrients. Yes, it does quite well with nasturtiums, do well in there, lemon balm, lavender, so kind of your herbs that wouldn't need much. I have grown potatoes. They did all right, as you can see, but they just didn't do as well as soil. All right. Aquaponic growing. Who knows what aquaponics is? I didn't say, it's kind of like hydroponics. No one wants to own up to knowing about hydroponics, do they? So aquaponics is like hydroponics, but on steroids, because you've got fish in there and rabbits and what else can you have? Poultry. Yeah, it's the idea of a water flow that is a closed loop system. So it's going to go through your clay ball beds, yeah, and then it's going to go into the fish pond. The fish pond can have a rabbit cage or a hen cage over the top of it with a wire bottom, so the droppings go into the water, further increasing the nitrogen in the water. Fish gills and fish poo will also be adding to the nitrogen in the water. That water then gets pumped back through the plant bed. All right, so it's a soilless system. The plants, those plants were just grown in water, okay? And you can eat the fish. Indoor aquaponic systems, you'd be looking at stocking tilapia. Outdoor ones in our country tend to be trout. But I just used koi because I figured I was going to grow koi really big and sell them as a kind of commodity. But you can eat koi anyway, so it doesn't matter. Right, so it's the ultimate closed loop system is aquaponics. Now, what would happen if you set up your aquaponics system in the garden, you had it fixed with your 12-volt pump, your solar pump, and what's going to happen when everybody else is hungry? So you can actually set up aquaponics indoors, all right? So just have a research about that. Right. So third aspect of food self-reliance was bulk buying, wasn't it, and storing. So who likes to think that they've got a bit of stuff in the cupboards for the future? So you kind of need to know what to store and how much of it to store. Again, I won't go too much of it into that, but flour, a lot of people have the misconception in our country and they get lots of flour. Flour doesn't actually store very well. If you're going to store flour, you ideally want coarse ground corn flour will store longer. So there's more about that in my book. Wild plants, so the foraging side. So who's foraging already? Yeah, many advantages to foraging. This talk is about the future-proofing aspect of foraging, but obviously it's uber healthy. You know, healthy in terms of dandelion leaves have 12 times as much vitamin A in as shop-bought lettuce. Yeah, so not only is it free and it's uber local, it's super healthy. So lots of reasons to forage, but for me particularly, it's about future-proofing your family. Lots of cautions involved in foraging. We've got the law, which is the Theft Act 1968, and that actually protects you as foragers, so you can legally forage in times of hardship. However, if you then go to turn that what you forage, the law says a person, even if not in possession of the land upon which he forages, cannot be charged with theft. All right, but if you forage and then try and sell it to a posh restaurant or turn it into jam or chutney and sell that, then you can be charged with theft, and that technically makes the WI the biggest criminal gang in our country, and that's true. So lots of things. These are the things I concentrate more on when foraging. Seeds, right? Who import? Well, I'll ask because. Chia seeds, yeah? I absolutely despise all the importing of all these exotic things, because Mother Nature provides us with everything that we import on our doorstep. We just don't understand that. So things like chia seeds we can replace with, say, plantain seeds. We import 16,000 tonnes of chia seeds into the West, and we don't need to, because we are a nation of seed growers, wild seeds. And then the other thing you need to be thinking about more so is the stems and the roots of plants, yeah? We've even got spices in our country. If the shops fail to supply, you've even got spices. Who knows what hogweed seed looks like? Yeah, who would like to try a hogweed seed after this talk? Because I've brought you all some. Yeah, I've got some, all right? So we've got spicy tastes in our country. I'm not allowed to call them native spices, apparently, but the kind of spices in our country, not brought in. Coffee. We've even got caffeinated seeds and caffeinated plants out there that can give us coffee. All right. So nature's very surprising in this great country. She actually has. We've got pineapple flavored tasting plants. We've got coconut scented tasting plants. Yeah. We really don't need to import anything. Get your kids used to it early on. All right. Don't take no for an answer. If they don't eat the meal you put in front of them, don't feed them to the next one. I'm past the age of social services reporting me now, so I can say that. That's Matthias foraging for his supper when he was told he wasn't getting anything else. See how happy he looks. Himalayan balsam seeds again, Mum. So that's in Passion glandulifera. People in communities all over do balsam bashing Sundays, and I hate that. We really just need to learn how to harvest and use the seed to prevent it from taking over everything. But they're the seeds, really nice, big, nutritious seeds. What about cheese? Who's made cheese while we're on this food self-reliance part? Yeah, lots of cheese makers. So that's fantastic. So cheese traditionally was a way of making milk store for longer when they didn't have fridges, yeah? Oh, I need to pass you. At the end, come and see me. I've got gadgets for you to make butter and to make various things, all right? But I've just realised I can't do that while holding the microphone. So I bought you a butter churn to make some butter at the end, all right? So who's made butter? Yeah, I knew this show was a good place to come. This is where I'm heading for if it all hits the fan. So roadkill, who's used roadkill? Yeah, so this is your food for the future when the shops fail to provide, yeah? Start looking at roadkill differently. If there is a mnemonic in my book, it tells you how to tell whether roadkill is safe to eat, all right? It was borrowed off a friend, I have to say, and she gave me permission to put it in. Also make friends with the local shooters if you're in the countryside, or the local lamper if you're in the town, okay? And that's just pheasant and hare. Hare is actually really nice. My kids absolutely, now if I drive past something and they're like, Mum, no, Mum, please don't, please. I'm like, I'm not leaving it. Okay, who's got hens? Another way you can be self-reliant in food. Yeah, a lot of hen keepers. So I've kept hens for a long time now, and lots of kind of different experiences. But somebody once gave me, I tried to breed in-house where possible, right? Get rescues or a breed in-house. Somebody once gave me an incubator so that I could breed in-house, and I didn't like it. Basically, I've got fluffy hens that do it for free without electricity. So in a power down situation, if you wanted to be food self-reliant and poultry was part of that plan, you need to keep something that looks like that. Yeah, a nice fluffy broody hen. You keep all the ones that you want to keep, but just make sure you've got a few broodies that will naturally raise your next generation chicks for you, okay? So obviously you've got eggs, you've got meat, and then breed in house. I tend to have a mixture. I've always got a couple of ducks. I don't really like duck eggs, but they do less damage on the garden. Really, really good for keeping your garden pests controlled as well. We're just totally full of slugs where we are now at the farm in York. 2 years of runner ducks, not a slug in sight. Now, here's an interesting one for you. Hang on. Preserving eggs, right? You're probably all aware that hens don't really lay eggs in January. When you really fancy an omelette on a dark January night, you haven't got any eggs, okay? But what you can do in a power down situation, or if you're living off grid, is you can preserve raw eggs without a fridge, right? Without anything, from the July summer glut to that January night when you really fancy that omelette with the fresh eggs, yeah? And how you do that is, anybody any ideas? What did you, isinglass, somebody said? Isinglass, absolutely. Isinglass is slaked lime, all right? It's not easy to get slaked lime. It was during a pandemic when I did this, so I couldn't really get out anywhere to find and process slaked lime. It involves heat. So I did have in the house calcium hypochlorite, which I always keep in for water purification, all right? So I just made a mix of water and calcium hypochlorite, put the duck eggs in it, and duck eggs, you know what they're like, they easy go off. And this is 6 months later. There's a video on my website where I didn't know what they were going to be like. It was a totally blind experiment, me cracking these eggs open. 6 months at room temperature, and they were absolutely perfect in January. All right, so that's how to keep your eggs from your poultry. What else can you do about food self-reliance? Who's been to the coast and made sea salt? Oh, sea salt from our coast is absolutely, make your own salt, please. It's absolutely amazing, because not only is it delicious and adds kind of minerals and flavour to your food, but what else can salt be used for? Preserving, yeah? We're thinking of life without a fridge. And then what else can we use for preserving that we can make ourselves? Yeah, hints in the picture, absolutely. Apple cider vinegar. You've got salt, you've got vinegar, not just for flavouring, but for preserving. Now, who likes to make bread? Yeah, so we can buy yeast, absolutely, and I don't blame you, but did you know that yeast is free and all around us? Who's made sourdough by capturing the, you can, yeast is free, it's all around us, all right? You can just capture it into the bread dough. Right, who uses aloe vera gel? I know it's a big popular natural remedy, it's a natural food. How am I doing for time? I've got a couple of minutes. Aloe vera gel? Well, as you're probably aware, we don't grow aloe vera, although I know you can grow it on your window ledge. What we do have, and you might not know this, is this plant grows everywhere in our country. It's planted as an ornamental, kind of decorative type thing, and it's a Phormium tenax is its Latin name, but it's a New Zealand flax. Now, this is our own version of aloe vera. So whenever you see this plant in a neighbour's garden, offer to trim it back for them, right? Because at the base, the Maoris would have used what they called the grandfather leaves. And at the base of the grandfather leaves, which are the bigger ones, and I like that because it's kind of, I was raised by my granddad. So at the base of the grandfather leaves of Phormium tenax lies this really thick gel-like substance, which is a polysaccharide, which is just like aloe vera. And you can eat it or you can put it on your skin. All right, so we've got that all around us too. Oh, and every element of your design has two functions. So what else can you do with it? You can weave with it. That was a mat, I got distracted. Right, I don't grow hazelnuts, but my dad does. John Seymour, in his Guide to Self-Sufficiency, he says that if the squirrels get to your hazelnuts before you do, take a shotgun to the squirrel and get your protein that way, all right? But my dad keeps a close eye on his hazelnuts, as you can see. So they're my dad's, and yes, he measured the yield output for different varieties that he was growing. I didn't, I just made it into Nutella, and that's my sourdough bread, all right? So what else can you do with homegrown nuts, or nuts that you forage, or nut and seeds that you forage? You can make wild seed milk, you know. You can turn it into nut and seed milks. Yeah, dead easy to make nut and seed milks. Now, making milk with your nuts and seeds, that sounds so wrong, doesn't it? It's the opposite to cheese, all right? With cheese, you are extending the life of a product, aren't you? Yeah, by processing it. However, once you mix water with something like nuts, you're reducing its shelf life. However, it's adding bulk. So it's the idea, if you need to feel full on a handful of nuts, yeah, make a nut milk, okay? But it reduces the shelf life, so it's a trade-off. Right, so self-reliant in health next. So what I recommend you do, everybody should have at least a basic first aid certificate. Who's got first aid? Yeah, look at you all. Basic suturing. Apparently you can use a pork chop and a curved needle to practice your suture. If you do that, don't come near me in the apocalypse, all right? But so basic suturing they recommend you learn, and that you can do on a pork chop, a pork joint I should say. Local plant healing knowledge. Who kind of makes some home remedies with what grows around them? Yeah, that's a fantastic thing to have under your belt. My particular thing is about, I want to optimize the chemicals that are in those plants, because when you think about it, right? Sorry, I'll just wait for the helicopter or aeroplane, whatever. Plants are under attack all the time, okay? Especially at root level. They are under attack by bacteria, by virus, by fungus, yeah? So it's no coincidence that plants pump out chemicals to protect themselves against those things. So when we learn what those chemicals are, we can protect ourselves from bacteria, from virus, from fungus. Does that make sense? Because the plants are attacked by it, they produce chemicals to defend themselves. What we're doing, it's not woo-woo plant medicine, it's finding out what chemicals are in that plant and how we can use them. And more importantly, what is the best extraction method? Because a lot of people make balms with things. Who makes plantain balm? Turns out that allantoin, the thing that is in plantain, isn't oil soluble, all right? If you're making anything to do with plantain to go on your skin, you really need to be extracting it into water or gel, right? And for gel, think snail gel or Formium tenax, okay? That New Zealand flax. So there's a lot more to it. So you need to think of what the chemical is and if it's oil or water soluble and how best to get it out. So who knows what this is? Meadowsweet, yeah? And meadowsweet is nature's aspirin, yes. And meadowsweet, along with the willow that we mentioned about having many, many purposes, willow bark in particular, and meadowsweet, it's no coincidence that they were both revered by the Druids, because the Druids realised way back that they helped relieve pain. Didn't know why, but obviously modern science is great because it says, right, it's because they both contain salicin, and upon ingestion, the body converts salicin to salicylic acid, which is nature's aspirin. Apothecary, so you should all be cracking on with an apothecary. Try saying that word when you're drunk. Chili oil, if you grow some chilies, you can turn it into chili oil, because chilies contain something called capsaicin, which when you put it on, it kind of prevents pain. There you go. I'm going to race through this now because we're at 1:30. Oak leaf wine off the oak tree on my drive. There's your hogweed seeds. Also, in my box, I've got a bee skep. And I'd ask me, come and talk to me at the end if you want to know about alternative beekeeping, how it differs from mainstream beekeeping, because here's some of the reasons you should think about keeping bees as part of your self-reliance journey. Beeswax fillings, right? If there's one reason to keep bees, it's for emergency dental procedures, right? If you've got a hole in your tooth and you can't get to a dentist, like in a power down situation, beeswax mixed with the tiniest little bit of some kind of antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory oil like clove oil, which in our country is Woodhaven's root, by the way. We've got a version of eugenol in our country, or pine oil. Mix it with the beeswax and fill your hole with your tooth to stop it getting infected. So lots of reasons why you should keep bees and have beeswax look. Skep making, you can even make your own home for the bees using thatcher's straw. There's some of my students making skeps. So finally, think we'll just self-reliant in light. When you live with no electricity, you get really experimental with what burns and what makes light. So there's three things that make light. You've got the container, you've got the fuel, and you've got the wick, all right? What are wicks made of? You know when you buy a candle from the shop, what is wick? Does anybody know what it is? It's cotton. It's dried, braided cotton. But we don't grow cotton in our country. So what have we got? We've got nettles. Has anybody made this one? Oh, this is corn fibre husks. If you live near corn on the cob, or you get them, look, they make nice candle wicks. Nettle wicks. You can use different things for the containers. I brought clay today. You could have had to go making a little clay pot with a garden twine wick and animal fat. All right. Who's seen roadkill badger? Yeah, great candles out of roadkill badger. So self-reliance in light. All right. we've got rugs. But basically, that was a whistle-stop tour, okay, of the different areas of your life that you can become more self-reliant in. All right, so I'm going to sit quietly in the corner. Are you next on? No, who's next on then? Because I'm aware. Are you next on? The Gurkha Welfare Trust. Okay. I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me on this whistle-stop tour of Self-Reliance, and do talk to me at the end if you want. But you guys give me hope for the future of the world, because you are where our society is needs to go. All right, you are learning these skills, you are sharing these skills. Remember, we talked about the idea of the self-reliant community. So learn skills, come together, share them, yeah? And you are our tomorrow, aren't you, with those skills? The government are on it, remember? Right, thank you, bye.